Today we're going to be covering GCSE Trig using the Sherpa online classroom. This will be everything you need to know to do trigonometry in your GCSE exams. So, all of the triangles we're going to learn about today use right angles. This means there's a right angle within the triangle and that there is also an angle theta. Alongside this, you have the long edge, which is called the hypotenuse. You have the edge that is opposite angle theta, called the opposite, and between angle theta and the right angle, you have the adjacent edge. The very first trig equations you're going to learn are SoH, Ca, and Toa. What these equations mean is simply sine theta equals the opposite over the hypotenuse, cos theta equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and tan theta equals the opposite over the adjacent. And as you can see here, remembering SohCahToa can easily help you remember the equations. So let's apply this to a triangle. If we draw one up here real quick, we've got our right angle and we also have an angle theta. I'm going to put this in a different colour just to make it a little bit easier to see. We have angle theta here, and I'm going to set my hypotenuse to 10 units long. This could be centimetres, metres, it really doesn't matter. And I'm going to set theta equal to 30 degrees. So, using SoH, sine theta equals the opposite over the hypotenuse, I can find out what the opposite length is. What I do is I rearrange so that the hypotenuse times sine theta equals the opposite. I know sine theta or sine 30 is a half because I put it into my calculator. So 10 times a half equals 5. I could have also put 10 sine 30 into my calculator and it would have come up with 5 as well. Next, let's take a look at the adjacent. So, using Ca, I know cos theta equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So again, if I times it by the hypotenuse, so that 10 cos 30 equals the adjacent, I'll be able to find that length. Now in this case, cos 30 is a little bit more complex to remember. It's root 3 over 2. So when I do 10 times root 3 over 2, I get 5 root 3. And I have my length. But what happens if, when I reconstruct the exact same triangle, except this time I have the lengths? I only need 2 here, but I'm going to put all of them in because we already know them. If I have the lengths, but I don't have the angle theta, well, this is where the inverse trigonometric functions come in. I can use that sine theta equals the opposite over the hypotenuse, except this time I'm going to use sine to the -1, to the inverse function, of the opposite over hypotenuse to find out what theta is. So in this case, theta is going to equal sine to the -1, remember, of 5 over 10, which I know is a half. So theta equals sine to the -1 of a half. When we put that into our calculator, we get 30 degrees. But we did already know that because when we look at that original triangle, which we constructed the lengths from, that was the angle that we used. So when we check, theta equals 30. So let's just recap everything we've gone over because it's a lot to remember. We have our lengths and we have our calculations for finding our angles. Sine theta equals the opposite over the hypotenuse, cos theta equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse, tan theta equals the opposite over the adjacent. Now if I want to find an angle, I use sine to the -1 opposite over hypotenuse, cos to the -1 adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan to the -1 opposite over adjacent. That's all we have time for with today's video. But as always, if you want to learn more, visit Sherpa-online.com, the only place you should be going to find your own personal tutor to help you get ahead of your studies. You can pick from a whole range of tutors and see what others have to say about them. And then, when you found the right tutor for you, you can use a Sherpa online classroom, which we use today, to have online lessons with your tutors, where you can speak face to face no matter where you are in the world. That's Sherpa-online.com. Visit it today.